Hello, good morning and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Boku is back in the news. Well, a lot appears to have been happening there, except it was not in the mainline news. Now, people are shot and killed, and there appears to be yet another tension. So when exactly and how will this conflict end? We'll speak to those who know deep enough to help us in the analysis. The controversial SML contract that is giving Ghana such a bad name abroad, as reported by the international press. That is the contract that Manasseh Azuri-Awini and his friends at the Fourth Estate found that the state or Ghanaians have been told lies. And it appears that instead of protecting the public purse, the purse, which is almost empty, is being looted. Civil society organizations who have reviewed what is going on smell, create, loot, and share. SML has received some 750 million Ghana cedis so far. And again, upon the extension of the contracts, is likely to get what CSOs call an annual giveaway of about $55 million at the minimum in this contract. The president says KPMG should conduct some audits. Issues are being raised. And what is that audit really about? But Parliament has stated that it was going to investigate the matter. The OSP is seized with the matter to investigate it. The Fourth Estate, latest developments. Almost all the institutions that are supposed to have a role to play are either refusing to give information or are telling the Fourth Estate that they played no role whatsoever, including the Minerals Commission and the Petroleum Commission. So what is going on? Ken Ofori-Atta, it's still in control of the broke economy and appears to be in charge of the hardships that continue to heighten. And the IMF has delayed in releasing the second tranche of the bailouts. We will examine what the developments mean in the face of rising cost of living. Of course, this year's elections will fall on the Sabbath day. A group of citizens belonging to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they give thousands of their premises, and their members are also recruited as part of the EC's temporary staff. But they say they will not violate the Sabbath on the 7th of December 2024. What can be done for them? I'm Samson Ladianyanini. We'll be right back to deal with Vex Matters. Welcome back, and here is Samson's take. Judges' residence. Irresponsible journalism can be costly. Some media ran to press minutes after the Ascent Central MP alleged that the Minister for Housing, Francis Asensio-Boakye, and former Chief Justice, Kwesi Anin-Yeboah, had engaged in some corrupt conduct over a bungalow for Justice Samuel Mafosao after his death in August 2021. The indecent haste to give currency to the allegation was as shameful as it was most unprofessional, because the allegation was one that was easily verifiable, but not verifying put those spreading it and media houses at risk of defamation suits they simply cannot defend. Now, even if, as later explained by his brother and lawyer, Raphael Ejapong, who is seeking to wrestle the Bantama constituency from the minister, was true, that the concern was lack of consent from the judiciary to take over the property, that was also very easily verifiable just by a phone call. It was the height of reckless journalism to publish such defamatory comments by a man seeking votes for his brother without the basic checks required by the ethics, natural justice, and common sense. I train journalists on these issues, and I know too well that no journalism school teaches this kind that tarnishes the practice generally. I defend journalists, but don't come calling me, not even for the frequent free legal advice, when you are induced or decide on your own to be this unprofessional. Apologize now to mitigate what those affected may do. You know, they can sue just anyone, any entity or group of persons spreading the false claims. Joy News Checks brought up this February 2023 agreement between the Judicial Service and the Ministry of Works and Housing. It was an agreement to pull down 4 of those small houses sitting on large tracts of land into 20 modern houses. The judge's house is one of 2 allocated by the ministry to the Service for Superior Court Judges. Upon completion, that's within 2 years, the service gets 4 modern houses for its judges. Truth is, the government, through the District Assembly's Common Fund, has been doing a good job building modern houses and courts, modern houses for judges and judicial service staff. Justice Anin-Yeboah is credited for one of such projects where the Asantehene gave 7 acres of land, prime land, for a residential complex at Denyame in Kumasi. And what you're seeing is those houses completed and habited. The 20 units, fully finished, 4-bedroom townhouses, each with a 2-bedroom outhouse, a swimming pool, a 7-bedroom guest house, a clubhouse, tennis court, and gymnasium, as well as 2 apartment blocks made up of 6-bedroom residential units for other staff of the Judicial Service, began in April 2021 and was first. And very first issue we are canvassing for you, as brief as we can, has to do with developments in Boku, where 5 people have so far fallen dead, and the situation there is not pleasant at all. Joining us, Mahama Yariga is the MP for Boku Central. Also, Amadou Hamza Zanga is the MCE for Boku. We have a lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center, Dr. Victor Doke, also joining us. Of course, if you have followed the news, you would have heard about how 3 people were shot and killed, and then 2 again, and bringing the death toll to 5 so far. One of the stories that was carried by Joy News just yesterday read that a bus carrying about 45 students of the Presbyterian Nurses Training College, Boku, has been attacked by 2 gunmen on motorbikes near Binduri in the Upper East region. A number of students who were injured due to the attack have been rushed to the Boku Presbyterian Hospital for treatment. This incident is said to have occurred Friday afternoon and follows the killing of 5 persons, within the past 48 hours. Honorable Mama Yaga, thank you very much for making time to join us this morning.
Good morning to your viewers.
Great. So this is coming just not too long ago, last year, when we had to engage you about similar incidents there involving the military, where you actually had to take a step to go to Shraj. What is it that is happening now?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to understand why the military will do what they are doing, because to be able to keep peace, you need to work with the community, and the community needs to have confidence in the security agencies. But when it is rather the security agencies that are doing the killing, then you are creating a situation where you provide justification for the community not wanting to cooperate with law enforcement agencies. And we all don't want that. That is why I find it totally unacceptable that the military should behave the way that they have conducted themselves in Boku. And in particular, the way that these 3 young men were killed. They were murdered because the security agencies, the soldiers, actually apprehended them, and they had no reason to shoot and kill these 3 young men. And so I find that totally unacceptable, and we will continue to demand accountability on the part of the security agencies.
So as I asked earlier, what's your understanding for our viewers, corporate leaders who don't get time to follow the news until a morning like this when they are all glued to this set, and our viewers abroad? What is it that led to this killing?
How do I know what led to the killing? Young men are sitting in their base and having their conversation, and then the military pounced on them. One escaped. They shot and missed him. Then the 3 that were there, they apprehend them, they beat them up, and then they shoot them. The people are not fighting soldiers. Soldiers are not fighting the people. The soldiers haven't come out with a statement telling us exactly what these 3 young men were doing, for which reason they had to.
Yes, but you are the MP, so you would have found out, as you have always done, and even gone ahead to take, action in legal action against them. It's unthinkable that the military will attack, shoot, and kill without any provocation.
Exactly. That is why I am condemning them, because they should produce the provocation. What was the provocation? I am saying on authority, and there are eyewitnesses. The assemblyman for the area is alive. He came out, he pleaded with the soldiers to release the boys. They refused. So there are witnesses. So obviously, the military is the one to produce provocation. What provoked me to the point where, after you had apprehended them, if they were even running away and then you fired, you could have concocted a story. But you arrested them. They were talking with you. So on what basis did you decide to shoot them? So that is really something that the military owes us an obligation to explain. So I'm not the one to produce the reason why that happened. I know that my boys were just having their conversation, and then soldiers pounced on them. 4 of them, 1 ran away. They shot and missed him. Then they apprehended the 3, picked them up. The assemblyman came out, pleaded with them. They won't release them. Then ultimately, they shot those 3 boys and killed them. So they should tell us why.
Please hold on briefly for me. Amadou Hamza Zanga, the MCE for Boku, thank you for joining us. What do you know led to what has happened, leading to the killings, and throwing the town once again into this heightened tension? Hello, Amadou.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Yes. I say good morning and good morning to all cherished listeners. It's a sad moment for Boku. I must say so because as the municipal chief executive and as the chairman of the Municipal Security Council, this is a very difficult moment for us in Boku. Yes, the question about the murder of the 3 guys rightly mentioned. That is true. The thing is that we are politicians, and as politicians, there's always the need for us to be decorum. There's a need for us to exercise some civility, and also be very mindful of the things that we say on air and also in the media. All of us are putting our heads together to ensure there's lasting peace in Boku. The President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the National Security Minister, the Regional Minister, and myself, including the Member of Parliament, we are all putting our heads together to ensure there's peace in Boku. Be that as it may, if things like that come up, we are not part of, we are not first witnesses of the thing. We sought to rely on others for information. I am on the ground, and I always think that there's a need for us to always talk and collaborate. We'll get to ascertain whether or not indeed a particular incident happened or not. Yes, when this happened, I heard a gunshot about 200 to 300 meters away from my house. Indeed, the first point I would always call is the police divisional commander, and also I'll follow up a call on the military commander, because they are the men on the ground.
Right, so you say you are the man who is on the ground. That's very good. And you label this as murder. That's even more serious. So tell us what led to the murder.
No, I am using it for people to understand, ordinary members to understand. Good. Now, when I heard these gunshots, it is normal in Boku that I would always call to find out from these security captains. And it took them a few minutes for them to respond back to me. And then the commander of the military on the ground mentioned to me that, in fact, they had an exchange with some boys who were around Asaliya school. I said, what boys? Where are they coming from? It was, at that time, being a stranger, difficult for him to tell me exactly where the boys are coming from. But I said, what happened? And then he told me they actually fired into them, and they also fired back. And because of that, they were able to neutralize them, as the term they always use in the military. And so it led to the death of 3 persons. However, they have called the police to come for them. This is exactly what the military commander has informed me on that said day. And so I am reporting to you based on the facts that I gathered from them. In fact, I went back to the police commander and equally got the same story from the police commander.
The boys were doing what exactly?
They were, according to them, they were firing back at them. They saw them and they were firing guns up to the soldiers. And they exchanged gunshots with them.
Yeah, so what happened, what led to exchange of gunfire? Something must have happened. What was that?
That I can't tell. I wasn't on the ground. And I'm telling you exactly what I was told.
Yes, those who are telling you, they don't tell you what led to the exchange of gunfire?
You see, in Boku here, what we know is that, and when there are guns fired around, usually and ordinarily, the 2 tribes, Mampushis and the Mampushis and then the Pusasis would always be at each other. And there are occasions, and many occasions, the military or the police must come in between them to separate the fight. And when they come, you cannot come and tell them, leave my gun, put the gun down. No, the only thing they do is to fire gunshots to disperse either the Mampushes and the Kusas to run away back home. This is what they do here.
Right.
So if you come very closer to one of the feuding factions, what the military would do is to engage them. Because if there are gunshots, according to them, we have always asked them and cautioned them to be mindful of the things that they do.
Yeah, so over 48 hours, you still do not know what exactly led to the exchange of gunfire. You are the head of the municipal security.
I'm reporting to you based on the information that I gathered.
Yes, but your information. Yes, but sir, your information, as you admit, is incomplete because there will not be exchange of gunfire without anything. Something must have happened. What were the guys doing exactly that led to it?
So that is why I'm telling you that the military commander had informed me that the guys were exchanging gunshots with them. They were exchanging gunfire with them. That's what he told me. That's what he told me.
Yeah, so if you understand me, if you understand me respectfully, sir, I get the part about exchanging gunfire with the military. But what led the military to get to them to lead to the exchange? What happened? Were they fighting some group?
There were gunfires.
Okay.
There were incidences in Boku in the last week. A guy was killed earlier. A Mampushi man was killed earlier. And I think 2-3 days afterwards, 6 people were fired, not too far away from the police station. It led to an instant death of one Moshi man. Then subsequently the following morning, a 17-year-old boy died through that incident. 4 of the victims are currently hospitalized in 2 hospitals in Boko. Some are at the Presbyterian Hospital and some are also at Bandyard. Then we heard of another major incident or killing incident, if I may use that term, in Bolgatanga, of which somehow others related it to the Boku case. And so because of that, it began started the whole Boku. Especially closer to Kabungari areas, of which I am not too far away from that place. And so it took us the following day up to dawn, and there were gunfire in Boku.
Boku is, if you may say, it's a militarized zone now.
I'm coming. Something. So I am giving you the historical antecedent that led to this. You are asking of the cause.
All right.
Or what triggered these things. And so let me also let me caution you that in Boku, somebody can just get up and take a gun and start firing without a cause.
Yeah, we have heard reports like that.
And so it's like that. It is not as if there must be a trigger, and that would be the one that would lead into another conflict or something.
Right. So to the question I was about to ask you, yeah, thank you very much for that. To the question I was about to ask you, Boku is literally, you can say, it's now a militarized zone.
Absolutely.
The military is everywhere. So how do these things happen on the blind side of the military? People getting killed and so on. The feuding factions.
Something. Let me tell you that Boku is more dangerous than what you think. You cannot have every military man standing by everyone's house. You can't have a policeman to a particular house. And so the deployment that we do in the municipality is supposed to be a distance from the other. And that's what we do.
But have you not failed in your duty to ensure that there are no guns in the homes, where we are told almost every house, has guns?
There will never be 2 months past that without searching. The military and the police have done a lot of searching. They've searched almost all houses in Boku, and it is very difficult to retrieve these guns from the residents of Boku. Mr. Mama Yarga is aware of what I am talking about.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that this happened since the 50s.
Okay, so
Constant searches in Boku.
So tell me, as head of the Municipal Security Council, what is going to happen from here after what you have gathered?
We are actually putting our things together. We're gathering our facts. When it happens, there are some instances that we call an emergency meeting. There are other instances where we wait to gather the facts before we can call for a meeting. As I talk to you, the place is not that safe. The commanders are moving about and ensuring there's peace in Boku. They will have to ensure that people are safe. So we are preparing ahead. From now to Monday or Tuesday, we'll call for a meeting and then and look at the way forward.
Yes. When the EC wanted to do a registration exercise there, you know,
yes,
there had to be division, all sorts of problems. Do you think Boku can host elections this year?
I am not the EC, and I'm also not the security man, but I can tell you that
you are the head of the security there.
I am the head of the security in Boku, but I'm not a security man, Samson. I am telling you that my men are ready to ensure there is free and fair elections on 7th December 2024. But I cannot predict what will happen before then.
Yeah, but
all things being equal.
okay, briefly and finally, right?
We will have elections on the same day that Ghanaians will equally have their elections in all the other constituencies.
Thank you for that. Briefly and finally, what has become of the news we were told about the intervention of the Asantehene and the team to try and bring peace? Because what you need is peace, and it must be as quickly as possible. This fighting and bloodshed has continued for just too long.
Asantehene is matter, the one that they sent, I think is AGM, right?
That's right.
Yes, what I can tell you is that it is handled at the national level. I am not privy to some of the information that is being handled at the national level. So I think that the president, in his own wisdom, had been able to stick with Asantehene and ask them to ensure they put their heads together to bring lasting peace to Boku. And I'm very confident about the process, that indeed it will come out and everybody will go to rest.
Yeah, except it's taking too long, and you are having to superintend over a ghost town, and you must not be happy about that.
That's very true. That's very true. I'm not happy about it. As a municipality, you are inheriting within 3 weeks and there's conflict in Boku. You must be so worried about this development. I am here to ensure that I bring bread and butter to the people of Boku.
Amadou,
so the development is something that is actually causing us a whole lot of problems within the municipalities. And we are spending so much time on security, almost every 24 hours. Our attention is on security either than development.
You're right. Amadou Hamza Zanga, MC for Boku, thank you very much for your time, sir. Right, back to you, the Honorable MP for Boku Central, Mahama Yariga. Now that you are hearing from the MCE what appears to be the cause of what happened, what do you say?
The MCE told you that he was told by the security people that that is what happened. Naturally, the security persons who have committed the act will cover their tracks. They will not tell him the truth. I'm telling you, friends and agents to the community, eyewitnesses saw everything that happened. These boys were not exchanging fire with anybody. They were actually apprehended by the soldiers because they were sitting. They were not, one ran away, but the others were sitting there because if I'm doing nothing, I haven't committed an offense and I'm sitting at my base and you are coming, why should I run? But one of them ran. The three that thought that there was nothing wrong with waiting for soldiers to come to them, they got apprehended by the soldiers. They beat them up. The assemblyman came out and pleaded with the soldiers to release the boys. They refused. And then ultimately, they shot the boy. He gets some of the community. So when soldiers do that, you expect them to now come and tell you empty that, oh, no, we just beat them up. They annoyed us and then we started to shoot them. Don't forget that these same soldiers, last year, they went and shot about 7 young men.
Yeah.
when I took them on, they issued a statement saying that they neutralized those people. I took the matter to Shrike. Last month, Shrike wrote back to me saying that the soldiers denied killing anybody on that day at that community. So clearly, they will deny. But let's to the community to find out exactly what happened.
Yeah, but Shrike cannot stop. Shrike cannot stop at listening to the soldiers and say, since they've denied, that's the end of it. Because it is investigating.
I'm just telling you the attitude.
All right.
Give me the attitude that they will deny, even when they have committed the offense. Even in this instance where they publicly admitted, they said they neutralized, they used the word neutralized. And you heard the MP also saying that they said, oh, they five young men who were engaged in the exchanges with them. There's no young man in Boku who just face soldiers and be engaged in gunfire exchanges with soldiers. No young man will do that. Because these are professionals. They know how to shoot better than you. So the boys don't engage the soldiers. They don't. It is a lie.
But don't you think that you may be assuming too much when you say no young man, with such, completeness, particularly where we are told again about how even, is it a bomb or so was planted by ordinary people in the same area. So some young men may be capable of doing what you may not be able to imagine.
Let me tell you something. If the young men engage the soldiers, I will know. And I'm telling you that they did not engage the soldiers. I will know. And I will not go public and attack the military when I know that the boys are wrong. I've not done that before.
Okay.
But when they are wrong, the soldiers are wrong, we need to face them and let them know that they are wrong.
Right.
We need them there. We have called for reinforcement. We've called for the military to be brought there, and they have been brought there in response to our own plea. But then, you should not also become the problem. That is my concern now. I'm not against the soldiers.
Right.
But I also will not allow the soldiers to just assume that when they get frustrated, then they should, unleash mayhem on the young people.
Are you hopeful?
You are not an ordinary human being. You are very professional.
As the MP, I'm sure you are also very worried about the fact that your beloved, constituency and town is being turned into a ghost town, and even religious organizations that have hospitals there threatening to withdraw, their staff because they are not safe, banking services and all of these. How hopeful are you of a resolution? How soon from all that is going on so far?
Well, the underlying cause of the problem in Boku, I would say, and I said this on your station yesterday in the morning, and the MP was challenging me, but he knows. The truth of the matter is that the NPP promised my uncles, chieftaincy, and they voted on account of that promise, and then they haven't done it. And the people are fighting, asking for their own pound of flesh. That you promised us this, and you must give it to us. Now, they know that it is not possible. Nana Akufo-Addo came and then publicly said that, no, that is not possible. Bawumia himself came recently and also said that is not possible. Hello?
Yes, you are on.
Yeah, so now the issue is for them to now enforce their position. The fact that, chieftaincy cannot shift from Kosasi to Mampushi. They have to enforce that. There is an outstanding issue, which is that the Mampushis have then gone to Enskin Arrival, supposedly Enskin Arrival chief, who is sitting in Alergu.
That's right.
The government says that is wrong. The government hasn't done anything about that. So these are the underlying causes. If you don't deal with it and you bring the entire Ghana armed forces to the place, like the MPE said, because you cannot, place a soldier before every single house, you still have security challenges without dealing with the underlying issues.
All right.
That's the reality of the situation.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
I am hoping that Otufo, His Royal Majesty, will find a way of getting both sides to engage. And I believe that under his authority, both sides will engage constructively, both Kosasi and Mampushi, so that we can come to some amicable understanding that the status quo is what will remain, and then find a way of dealing with the issues of the other side, then we can, peace fight and then chart a path of peace and then redevelop the constituency.
Thank you.
So I report so much confidence in Otunfor and his ability to bring this situation under control.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Dr. Victor Doke. Doctor, thank you very much for making time to join us. I know that the issue in Boku is very sensitive, has history that goes into several decades. There have been courts, there have even been state legislation trying to enforce a certain state over this same issue. And all the time, it doesn't seem to work. So I know it is not a simple issue. But from where you sit, quickly, what's your prescription for peace, for the restoration of peace and some normalcy within this place, instead of the bloodbath and all the things that we see that we don't want to have the memories of?
Right, thank you, Samson, and Happy New Year to you. Now, before I go to the prescription, let me highlight some of the challenges from listening to yesterday's conversations with stakeholders and all that. There's a clear problem here that there isn't a collaboration or coordination between even the state agencies that are on the ground there to ensure peace, i.e. the military, the police, and other state institutions, okay? Now, the resources aren't there to build the capacity to train these servicemen to understand how to relate with conflict access, i.e. the Mankusis and then the Kusasis, the youth especially. Now, the political will somehow is lacking. We need to ensure that there's a political will to invest the resources needed, involve the CSOs to come in. There are NGOs on the ground there. Most of the times you don't even hear about these NGOs except when there's a meeting, bilateral consultations that they are invited. But when you go to the ground, you need these NGOs to also be part of you, to ensure your engagement with the community is there. We don't have the sustained engagement going in. Every time we start a process, then we lay back, thinking that when we send the soldiers there to separate the two sides from clashing, then that is it. But you still hear sporadic shootings. That tells you that the guns are still in the system.
I'm told the shooting is a daily occurrence, really.
It is. And from my research there some time ago, look, these youths have the weapons because one of the mistrust between the two of them. They do not know when the either side may
But Doc, is it not surprising for a militarized zone like this? How do the weapons get in there when they are searching every week or 2 weeks to retrieve weapons?
Right, Samson, you raise a very pertinent issue. The aspect of having the military all over the town, but still you hear shootings, then that tells you that army in uniform may be lacking some essential strategy. That is what I raised the issue of the collaboration with the NGOs. The field-based organizations over there know a lot about the grounds. They have interacted with the youth. These are the youth who are carrying the weapons. Don't forget we have the porous borders in, okay? That also contributes to the inflow of these weapons. We have Kingsmen sitting in Accra sponsoring these young guys with either resources, funds, and the weapons. It is a fact. We cannot run away from it. So you can't have the military now saying, going house to house. I watched a report yesterday by City News, and then 5 months ago, there was an operation conducted by the military, went to with the aim of retrieving the weapons. But at the end of the report, I heard there was no weapon retrieved, and that was surprising. So if now you want the military to go in house to house, bear in mind, it's going to create a problem. You need to approach it tactfully. Now, let me go to the prescription. You need a holistic approach to this. We are lacking one sensitization, awareness creation on the part of the people to understand the effects, the impact, okay, of one, small arms-like weapons proliferation, the effects of the conflict itself on the development in the town. Now, let's look at how we've neglected the essential aspect of including the civil society organizations. We have the West African Network for Peace Building, Berlin Musa Development Agency, which have worked extensively in Boko Town. Other NGOs have folded up because they have run out of funds due to the protracted nature and entrenched positions taken by the two sides. We need to look at building the training and the capacity aspect of these servicemen to know how to relate to the youth, especially to even use them as a source of intelligence to retrieve information, to even know where and when these weapons are coming in. They would even pick information as to who is firing weapons, and then with that information, they can pick these people, hand them over to the police, and then the aspect of also treating criminal matters criminal has to be reinforced. Most of the times you hear if someone is arrested or a group is arrested, right, and evidence has proven that they have involvement in this issue, what happens? You hear they have been let go.
How bad is the influence of the political leaders and the political division, which apparently has aligned with, you know, the ethnic groups, the two? In how is what they do frustrate the ability to achieve, you know, a restoration of peace? You are listening to the MP, you are listening to the MCE, and you can hear the undertones, you know, the politics in there. The MP says, no young man, he's so emphatic about it. But we know that there have been situations where young men have actually, you know, exchanged gunfire with the military.
Right. Rightly said. Now, when you look at the political dynamics with this kind of conflict, we would agree the dynamics will be there. But how do we ensure that the dynamics do not influence the conflict in a bad way? Now, when you have political heads, okay, of course we know that whoever controls the majority controls virtually everything. You will the authority and the power in decision-making, political appointments. And that is to an advantage per the political space we have in Ghana, okay? Now, how do we ensure that these political heads do not take advantage of the conflict, okay, influence the youth in a bad way to now engage or to take the entrenched positions that they are still holding on to? We need to have an extensive multilateral stakeholder consultations, okay? Including these political heads, which, per my understanding, has been also neglected at some point.
All right.
We need to do that. When we do that, we'll have some positive outcome. Or else we'll have spillovers like we are hearing elsewhere in Accra. And these are youth from Boko who have come here to do business or whatever, and they are following events in back home.
All right.
And trust me, they will just go in and then support their kinsmen when they feel they need to.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc, for your intervention, and at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center for helping so very extensively on this matter. You guys have developed so much research and interaction with the people, and you have always assisted us, from Dr. Kwesi to the rest of you. Thank you so very much. Now, just a brief commentary about how they can move forward. And, you know, for example, the last time Mama Yaga went to Shraj, now he's calling on the military. They must give good reasons, and he's right in asking that they must explain. I have someone who says on the 12th of this month, they sent a team to Boku to install equipment in a meat factory, and they did so under military protection. A young man was killed. And he says the MC actually refers to that. That's what the MC is referring to. He was killed only a few meters away from the factory. In fact, the young man was killed a few meters after their team called on him to help them lift something. So this team saw everything live and reported the matter to the military, and the military was engaged in gunfire. So when the politicians support their own with so much, you know, faith, they ought to be cautious, right?
Yes, I agree with you to that extent. But first of all, good morning to you. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Good to see you after a long while.
It's to my people in Sabda and Peki Pali Something.
It's Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo who is speaking. Forgive me, I didn't introduce you.
My position is very simple on this matter. We have a national security strategy document. If you read it, Boku features in it prominently. And the strategies drawn by the national security apparatus to deal with the problem. So I am surprised, even with all the strategies outlined in the document, to dealing with the issues, we still have this problem. Why? Because there are no consequences arising when people commit crimes or offenses or commit acts that ought to be punished.
All right.
There are simply no consequences. These are extrajudicial killings. Before I got here, I had read the Honorable Mama Yarga has put out a statement.
Are you not also falling into that error?
No.
You say these are extrajudicial killings.
Yes, but it is. But it is. Otherwise, you can get killed, I can get killed, and nothing happens. There has to be consequences. See, we want to create a situation.
Someone will tell you that this is literally a war zone.
It is not. It is not. We have crisis, but it hasn't degenerated to one of war.
Every home has guns hoarded. They can't find them when they go there.
Are we spending millions of our state funds on security personnel to deal with the issue? I am not a trained security personnel. You are not. That is somebody's sworn profession, for which they've gone through the ranks today. They call themselves major generals, brigadier generals, and all. That is not you and I's domain. And they brought a budget. The budget has been approved. Monies have been given. So somebody is not doing his job well.
But if you are doing this, you face resistance. And when they face resistance, there may be gunfire exchanges.
Can we deal with the matter at hand? What are the facts as put out? That 4 young men.
Let's not go to the facts, because sometimes it's difficult.
You see, you're asking for a very brief comment.
Let me tell you, there's not a single day I have hosted a discussion or moderated a discussion on Boku that I didn't get almost both factions calling me after the show. And some are angry, saying this fact was wrong, this fact was that. Okay. And you don't even know how to moderate that.
So let me make the simplest point, that when things like this happen, there must be consequences. People must be punished. If we don't punish, we'll create an artificial war and commit murder. And that, for me, is what I suspect is happening.
All right.
Create a conflict situation and kill your opponent in the name of conflict.
Okay, so this is where we take a break, and when we return, Manasseh Azuri-Awuni, investigative journalist, fellow, Harvard University, will join us. Dr. Theo Champong, economist and political risk analyst, and of course, Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo is right here. He's MP for South Dai. We'll be right back. Important discussion to have. The MCE for Boku insists, and he corroborates what I was actually, challenging Ayarga about, that it is not true that the civilians don't attack the military, and that there are actually evidences to show that. And he also says that it must be on the record that the NPP has not promised anybody anything as suggested by Mahama Yarga. Now let's get to SML. That's the story that, if you checked on the international wires, for example, the Africa report, January 17, 2024, their story is headed, Ghana, SML contract, scandal dents Akufo-Addo's anti-corruption image. It begins by saying the Ghana Revenue Authority's contract with Strategic Management Limited is to be suspended following an expose by local investigative journalism outlet, The Fourth Estate, Earlier this month, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo ordered the Finance Ministry and the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, to suspend the controversial revenue assurance contract with Strategic Management Limited, SML, tasking KPMG to conduct an audit into the appropriateness of the deal. Imani Africa and ASEP, Africa Center, have also done a thorough examination, review of the whole situation. Bright Simmons has also done some other work, and all of them come to a conclusion that this appears to be a clear create, loot, and share agenda, and that the company SML does not deserve the 750 million Ghana cedis or so that it has already received, and then the extension of the contract that brings it to be entitled to annually about is it 55 million US dollars. They say all of this does not work. In fact, they indict the KPMG investigation audit and say that's actually not what is needed. Let's begin with Manasseh Azore Awine. Manasseh, thank you very much for waking up this time. What time is it in the US?
It's now 5 a.m., but I've been up the last 3 hours.
Thank you very much. You began all of this with your team, Evans, Aziamo, Mensah, Adjoa, Adobia, Owusu, on the story that hit our airwaves, the 3 billion Ghana cedi lie. GRA's data shows volumes decreased after shady SML contracts. As we understand, you have sought to procure information from various quarters, and it appears you are being denied. Others have been unequivocal, like the Petroleum Commission, that they have not been involved. Tell us where you stand after everything that has happened, including the president's, instructions to KPMG, Parliament's intervention as well.
Thank you very much, Samson. I just need to say that the total amount that this company will be entitled to per the new arrangement is over 100 million US dollars, and not 55, as you said. The money is actually more than that. Now to the issues. The Ministry of Finance responded to a right to information request I sent, and then denied me a copy of the contract and other pieces of information. We sent this request in November last year, and then the response came a while ago. The Ghana Revenue Authority, we sent 2 requests, one in July last year and one in November last year, and we have not had any response from the GRA, even though we filed an RTI appeal. Now to the responses from the Petroleum Commission. We knew that 3 main sectors were involved in the issues we're dealing with. That is the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, the Petroleum Commission, and then the Minerals Commission. The NPA deals with the downstream petroleum sector. That's the importation and transportation of the fuel products we use. And then the Petroleum Commission is in charge of the drilling of oil offshore and the production of oil. Then the Minerals Commission, as we all know, is in charge of the gold and others. So our investigation actually started with the NPA. And whoever watches the documentary will know that the NPA has put in measures that are adequate enough to police or assure government's interest in the downstream sector. And officials of the GRA we interviewed in this documentary actually confirmed this, the head of petroleum, Samson Yanim, actually said the NPA's ERDMS, which is connected to customs ICOMS, their revenue system, ensures that they get the volumes right. And once you get your volumes right, you get your revenues right. This is from the GRA. So we know that the NPA is covered. Then we went to the Petroleum Commission, because on the website of the Petroleum Commission, it says that it was established by an Act of Parliament, 2011 Act 821, as the result of the hydrocarbon discoveries in commercial quantities to regulate and manage the utilization of petroleum resources and coordinate policies in the upstream petroleum sector. So when we saw that a contract was being awarded to a company to go to this upstream petroleum sector, we wanted to know if the state agency that is mandated to regulate and coordinate policies in this sector had any knowledge of it, whether they had information of leakages, whether accidental or deliberate. And so we did a right to information request. And the Petroleum Commission, I must say, responded very swiftly to our request, which we included in our report, and said that they had no knowledge of this contract, and that they have also no knowledge of any report that suggests that there were such losses in the sector. Then we wrote again to the Minerals Commission, and the Minerals Commission, according to its official mandate on its website, says it is the government of Ghana agency with the primary responsibility of developing and coordinating mineral sector policies and monitoring their implementation. So when they failed to respond, we appealed to the head of the entity, and we got a response this week. And this response came from the CEO of the Minerals Commission, Mr. Martin Eyisi, who actually said that the Minerals Commission did not play any role in this contract to SML. The Minerals Commission again stated that it did not have any report to suggest the losses in the sector. And the Minerals Commission went ahead to say it actually conducts periodic audits to assure government's interest or revenue in the sector. So what all of these point to is the simple fact that there was a letter that said the Minister of Finance, and we know the Minister of Finance is Ken Ofori-Atta, had determined that revenue assurance or monitoring should be done at the upstream sector and also the gold mining sectors. And these responses point to the fact that the state institutions that are mandated to monitor and ensure government's interest in these sectors were not involved. They had no input. They did not report any losses to the Ministry of Finance. And when the Ministry of Finance denied a response, one of the questions we also put to them was whether or not the ministry had received any reports from the sector agencies. And they denied to give us the contract, but they responded to that question. And I read from the Ministry of Finance letter, which was signed by Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, a Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. And the letter says, we do not have direct information on purported reports from agencies in the petroleum and mining sectors about losses in the downstream, upstream, and mining sectors. So the question that we need to be asking, or Ghanaians should be asking, is if there wasn't any such report, what was the basis or what informed Ken Ofori-Atta's decision to ask this company to go and do this work when the existing contract, as we all know, the downstream sector, this company has performed.
So those of you who are watching on TV, what you're seeing now is the response from the Minerals Commission, from the Petroleum Commission, where they were categorical that they were unaware of what was going on, and so they couldn't help Manasseh with any information, as he spoke about. Yes, please go on.
Yes, so what I was trying to say is that the question everybody should be asking now is what informed the Minister of Finance's decision to ask this company to go to the gold mining sectors and also the upstream petroleum sectors, when if you look at the Minerals Commission's response, it actually says that it conducts periodic audits together with some state institutions to ensure government's interest and doesn't have a hand in this. And back to the other issues that have come up, I think the Imani and then the ASEP statements made it very clear that the only defense or maybe substantial defense that the GRA gave in the wake of our investigation was that this company actually saved us money because when they started operation, volumes went up. And their own figures, which they were reported to the Ministry of Finance under the ESLA, actually contradict this claim. And that in 2022, the volumes actually went down. And this goes to add to the fact that the company, SML, which made these claims, backed down or said no, they weren't true when we confronted them. And about the KPMG and the president's action and everything, I think that the presidency had enough information or evidence to have at least abrogated the expanded contract and also call for an audit or an investigation into the existing ones. So that is my
all right.
take on.
Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Theo Champong. Dr. Theo Champong, thank you very much for making time to join us once again.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, so what do you have to say about the developments as far as the SML contract with the state is concerned? ASEP and Imani have read over their assessment and review using the government's, as in government entities' own data, and coming to the conclusion that there was no any assessment to show that we actually needed a third party like SML to do this revenue assurance. There was no any such assessment. And that in fact the data that was being used for tax purposes is not anyone's data, but the data that is generated by the MPA. So it's as if we are throwing money to a company for no work done. Almost 750 million Ghana cedis over the period. And then we extend the contract to the gold area, and we are being told that that one too, annually, they are going to get what these groups refer to as a giveaway, about 55 million each year for free. Where do you stand from your analysis of the situation in the face of the OSP's work that has commenced, Parliament, and the President's decision to also bring in KPMG for an aspect?
So thank you once again, and pleasure to be here. Luckily, I have worked in this space over the last 10 plus years on both mining, oil and gas, and then the downstream sector. And I can say on authority that this contract is not needed. The expanded contract, or even the one that was done before, is not needed and should be terminated or abrogated. So in that regard, given what Manasseh has just said, and others have also said, it is very clear, and I'll come to the details in a moment, that the SML contract is not needed, number two, it does not really add any value. And even some of the purported claims, when you actually look at the data and you do the analysis, it cannot be substantiated for one reason or the other. The first point I'd like to make in terms of the detail is what Manasseh talked about. These state agencies actually conduct a lot of periodic audits, and I've actually been involved in some of them in the past under different, donor-funded programs, and they are supported by relevant legislation or regulation. So let's look at, for example, the upstream oil and gas sector, right? Besides the law that sets up the Petroleum Commission and gives them the mandate to do what they do, there's a raft of other legislation that gives them scope and room to audit and then also to check the production volumes that are coming from the sector. The most important one is actually a piece of LI called LI 2246. It's the Petroleum Exploration and Production Measurement Regulations. And that LI has enough detail that shows the revenue assurance processes and the mechanisms that one follows in trying to basically ensure that the state is getting its fair share of the oil volumes that are lifted. We also, on the oil platforms themselves, they actually have electronic meters, right? So in the early days of the oil industry, there was an issue where some exports of crude oil took place without the meters not working fully. Subsequent to that, so this is basically after 2013, 14, thereabout, we've actually had these electronic meters that have been installed on the platforms, and then also GRA itself carry out physical inspection. So whenever a tanker is leaving the offshore platform or these export vessels, they actually do measurement and dipping, and there's a whole series of mechanisms that are involved to basically ensure that you're getting the right volumes that are due to the state. Number two, if you look at even the PIAC reports and other reports in terms of what we are getting from our entitlement share of the revenues, often there's very little difference between what we're getting and even what the companies are getting themselves. So if you now say you're going to do an audit, and even this audit, we're not even sure what exactly SML was going to do to add to that. There are companies, if you even wanted to do, for example, a cost audit, there are companies that are out there that have, one, the capability and the capacity to do a thorough piece of work on cost auditing, and I'm not talking revenue audit, cost auditing, than what SML purports to have done. So if you look at the evidence and what the agencies do already, there is nothing whatsoever that SML would have done that adds any value to what currently exists, because the agencies by law do these audits themselves anyway in that regard. Again, if you look at the downstream sector and you look at the MPA data, you look at the ASEP statement, you do the analysis over 10 years, over 20 years, it is very clear that this consumption increases, this up and down, it changes year on year, right? So the point that at one point, they talk about a 33% or so increment in volume or consumption because of SML, that is not borne by the fact. In fact, you look at that and you look at the analysis, you can see in some years the growth rate goes up, some years it comes down in the way that is follows the dictates of the market. So you look at the ASEP statement and it says that, quote, the analysis indicates that SML's data was intentionally inflated to validate its contract with GRA, and it bore no correlation with the data employed for revenue accounting. And I strongly stand with that, because I've looked at the data myself, and again, it's very clear that there is no value whatsoever that SML is bringing that already the existing institutions in the country are not doing themselves. In the mining sector, again, you've got the likes of PMMC, you've got the Customs Division of GRA, you've got Minerals Commission as well, and again, there's a lot of periodic audits that are done. Even if we're not even assured, right, of those audits that are done, go and look at the Gaiety report, the Ghana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. They actually issue a lot of reports over the years. The last report that was done, I think, was for 2020 or 2021. And you can see the detailed payment schedule and what the companies are reporting on the large scale sort of mining sector. And again, the claims of what SML was going to do in that sector is not substantiated by the evidence on the ground. So the claim of making savings is not proven. There's nothing new that they are going to do that adds any incremental value to the country. And number three, if they even wanted to do that, there are other specialist niche companies that are, more in tune with doing customized cost auditing.
And this is where you guys with expertise in the field are questioning the sole source for this particular company, which was a timber company that has metamorphosed into now an audit assurance company, right?
Precisely. If you want to do it, there are ways to do it. One, you involve the state agencies. Number two, make sure that you've gotten the company that actually has proper technical expertise and competence to do the work. And on both of these fronts, I'm afraid to say we've actually failed, right, on that side.
Now, before I get
I think it's quite clear something that contract is not needed and it should be, in my view, abrogated
forthwith. Before I get to the Member of Parliament, and they too have been seized with this issue, and now it looks like things are being taken from under them. In the Imani ASEP, extensive review, they say that there's a point which has some positive, and I wanted to find out from you if you share that view. Apart from the fact they say that the perplexing extension of the contract to encompass gold production adds another layer of bewilderment. This move appears to be driven by the Finance Ministry's questionable influence. Once again, if PMMC, the Customs Division of GRA, and the Minerals Commission are perceived as failing in their duty to protect the state's interests, the imperative is to rectify and strengthen these institutions, rather than creating a royalty of 0.75% for SML. This seemingly arbitrary addition amounts to an annual giveaway of about 55 million at a minimum. I think it ought to be an annual giveaway of over $100 million instead, because the $55 million is for the gold sector alone. So overall, the company is to be making over $100 million every year. Okay, so that's correct. Now, my issue here is they suggest that if you think that all these state institutions are failing to do the right thing, you should rather give the money, part of the money. They say there's an annual fee of $40 million allocated to SML. It says that could be used to significantly contribute to the operational efficiency and enhancement of the numerous institutions. What do you say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, look, what the two agencies here have said, so both the Petroleum Commission, Minerals Commission, and others, basically is contradicting, right, what the Finance Ministry or GRA sought to do in the case of this contract, right? That you're basically saying that we don't trust our state agencies and institutions to do a thorough job. I can understand when you say you don't trust them or you don't believe them if the issue is one of competence. But I have worked in this space for a while now, And I can also tell you that it is not a question of competence. Sometimes it's resources that are available to do the job. And even when the resources or you need extra, call it consultants, to do that, there are ways and means that you can bring them on board to support or complement the work of these existing institutions. So if the question really is, one, you believe that you're not getting enough of those revenues and there's some sort of short-changing or to use the common parlance, kalabule, right, for want of a better word, what you do is you resource the institutions much better to do the work, not to bring other bodies or agencies, and particularly in this case that don't even have the wherewithal or the technical competence to even do the work, right? And then number three, there's even a legal dimension here as well, which is also a bit lost to us in the debate. If you read the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, right, it's very clear at the top that you cannot use oil revenues to do certain things. So when you read this particular contract, and to the point that for every additional or incremental barrel of revenue that they collect, they're going to get paid a certain proportion, I struggle to reconcile that with even the provisions of the law. And I think there potentially could even be some issues with violation of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, in this particular context here.
Right.
So what ASAP and Imani are saying, which I align with and which other people have said, is that if you think there's a problem, resource the institutions to deal and address with this problem, not create this parallel structures, which at the end of the day doesn't really do much to add any value whatsoever. And with this particular contract or case, when you do the thorough analysis, look at the data over 10 years, over 5 years, it is very clear that there is no incremental value add that SML is bringing.
Right. I'll ask the lawyer about issues of potential causing financial loss, because if in the government response it brought out, it suggested as if there was some data that they were relying on that led to the appointment of SML through sole source, but all the review shows that depending on MPA and GRA's own data, they are not using SML's data for the tax purposes for which they were employed in the first place. So is that some sort of financial loss being occasioned? But my question is, how significant is this, that the MPA, the Minerals Commission, the Petroleum Commission, all who must play a part in determining whether there was a need for this entity, played no role at all? How significant is that?
It is damning. If you look at the statements that have come through, because for a major piece of work like this, normally you have state institutions that are involved, because SML cannot manufacture their own data. They've got to get data from the respective state, agencies, together with, with GRA. And often I know that these state agencies work sometimes closely with the GRA. A few years ago, there was even a petroleum revenue management or assurance body that was set up, which was at a cross-institutional, level, to ensure that some of these data issues, some of these revenue issues are all sort of, addressed. So the point that it looks on the surface from what the statements the MinCom have issued, Petroleum Commission and others, that there was an attempt in a way to even sideline them, right, from all of this, process that is ongoing. And that does not augur well when you want to build institutions that stand the test of time, particularly institutions that by law have been given a certain mandate, right, to carry out some of these things that they do. And we have proven on this platform and others that these bodies and agencies actually do these audits anyway, periodically. So what is new that SML is going to do that they already do not do?
Interesting.
But further to that, the point that you are now even, sidelining them and trying to take away the core work or an aspect of the core work that these institutions, are meant to be doing.
Interesting. It sounds like when I process it, the Supreme Court, by the Constitution, has been giving the exclusive original jurisdiction to interpret the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's the job they have been giving, and we pay them to do that. And then there is a need to do that, and then you go and give that job to, you set up a group of people, a private company, and say, here, do that job. It won't work.
Let's say you go and give it to regional tribunal.
Okay, right. Regional, that will still even be the state.
Legitimate.
So, what do you see? I would like you to comment on the question of potential, financial loss. But what do you see? That Parliament began by saying, we are going to look into this. The Speaker directed so. Then there was a petition to the OSP. The OSP, in its report, says it is commenced investigations. Then the President says, let KPMG come in and give me an audit. And SML is very quick to say KPMG will exonerate us.
Yes. Everywhere you'd have said the same thing, especially if you understand the triumvirate of relationships between the GRA, Ministry of Finance, SML, and the external audit works that KPMG does for these entities. Now, Samson, I support the idea that this contract amounts to causing financial loss to the state. And I'm happy that Dr. Champon went further to indicate the existing legislation, the enactment, that's Regulation 2246, which is the Petroleum Exploration and Production into bracket Measurement Regulations 2016. If we go particularly to Regulation 21, 22, 23 of that LI, it tells you what the entity is supposed to do. And the verification process, all the procedures are provided under the law. So I wouldn't have had problems if these engagements were by the Petroleum Commission. Because you see, the law mandates it to undertake this process. So if it thinks that it lacks the internal capacity, then of course you could expend some small money, get an external entity to assist you to carry out your mandate. That's not what is happening. The Ghana Revenue Authority, and before I go into this matter, let me draw your attention to a similar contract that the same entity entered with the McKinsey Group. You recall? We brought in a South African audit firm ostensibly to come and help to enhance our revenue mobilization efforts. And when at the time GRA was doing about 23 contribution to nominal GDP in terms of revenue, we brought in the McKinsey Group around 2018, ended up paying them $18.5 million. That contract generated a lot of problems for the GRA and its board with Ministry of Finance. It led to the removal of Carlos Ahinkra from the GRA board. It led to the removal of Kweku Kwatin also from the GRA board. It led to the removal of Senior Adoyobo, Mrs. Junior Adoyobo from the GRA board. And it was their departure that brought in Professor Day and the present Commissioner General, Reverend Amishadai. The McKinsey one was under Kofi Nti when he was then the Commissioner General. So this is not the first time the GRA/Ministry of Finance will bring an entity supposedly to come help us generate more revenue, only for us to discover that they were not doing anything anyway. It was just an avenue to drain our resources. Now, Manasseh has gone into this matter. If you look at the formation of SML, SML was established in February 2017. They established two companies. They established what they call the SML Innovations, Strategic Mobilization Innovations Limited. Then, a week later, that was established on the 8th of February 2017 for purposes of engaging in trading of goods and services. They had nothing to do with audit of entities or revenue enhancement mobilization. Then a week later, then they set up the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. Then they had the same people, the same address given in Tema Committee 1, same address, same telephone number, same director. But in case of the second one, they changed one of the directors to Patrick Edusei. And then they added auditing services. Auditing. That's the purpose, that's the additional purpose they added to the second one they established on the 14th of February 2017. Then almost immediately they got business with the GRE without exhibiting any background competencies. If you look at their books.
Why that reference? Is it about Christian Soti from controller? Then he moves to GRA to work for the GRA boss himself, and then the contract is entered. Then shortly he leaves GRA and he's the head of this private company.
I am making the point to corroborate the point made by Manasseh that this company and Dr. Tio Champon, that this company exhibited no prior competencies or expertise in the area. And being a company freshly established.
So the sole sourcing was not warranted?
No, if you look at the procurement law, at all. At all. And especially when upon auditing their work, it appears that they were engaged in no work for which they were supposedly contracted. So for me, a crime is being committed here. Tomorrow it may be looked into. 1, for causing financial loss to the state. 2, for conflict of interest on grounds. Because it's so unacceptable that the mandate of a state entity has been hijacked by another state entity, offloaded to a private entity, for which they are doing practically nothing, and we are losing so much money. It appears that the 18.5 million paid to McKinsey, after which they packed out of this country in 2021, in 2021, pills into some shadow. When
this is $100 million US each year.
So when it was 18.5 million, the minority leader at the time, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, on the floor of the House and on behalf of the minority, in concluding his debate on the approval of the 2021 budget, decided that this matter be looked into. God, we couldn't be paying McKinsey $1.5 million every quarter. And so when the agitations began, and they had to terminate the contract and allow them to leave. Eventually, we paid them $15 million for terminating the contract and $3.5 million for administrative charges. Everything went to $18.5 million. Even that one, we thought that it was mind-boggling for that kind of money to be given to this external foreign company. Now, a Ghanaian company is contracted, and the monies we are paying them has been tripled and quadrupled for a similar work, which independent audits are establishing that they truly haven't done any work. So Sam, this matter. So the fact that the matter engaged Parliament, the minority moved a private member's motion, got debated, and the motion got adopted. Speaker directed that the Finance Committee look into the matter expressly and submit a report. So they were to have moved into action as soon as we went on recess on the morning of the 22nd. No, on the morning of the 23rd. Then in the course of the Christmas festivities, the matter became very topical, and the president directed that KPMG be contracted to do this. It's been over 2 weeks. Even if we have any issues with the directive, I am saying that it's over 2 weeks. Where's the report from the KPMG? They were given 2 weeks to look into this matter and bring the report. It's been over 2 weeks. So even directing KPMG, some of us had.
I think there's a suggestion that they would have gotten an extension of time because the time was too short.
The directive was made public. You accepted the responsibility. If the time frame given to you as an entity was too short, you should have openly stated that you are willing to do the job, but the 2 weeks given to you by the president was too short. So you pray for an enlargement of time. We haven't heard that publicly. So I am expecting that the KPMG report would have been ready by now, submitted and made public. It's not happening. So it appears that it's again another scheme to cover up this whole thing.
Right. The matter about the audit too, and I'll get a brief comment from Dr. Theo Champong and Manasseh before we wrap up on this. And I need to state that the state actors have declined to participate in this discussion, and it's understandable.
And if I do,
yes, yeah.
Look, we are in an RTR era. State institutions would still think that they can hide public documents and not make it public when citizens make harmless requests for them to smell the coffee, to wake up and smell the coffee. An RTR request is the Minister of Finance saying that when Manasseh and his group are invited by KPMG as purposes of the audit, they wouldn't have to speak to this contract and the terms. So how are they supposed to get a copy when you are in possession of the copy and you don't want to make it public? What exactly are they hiding?
That's also an interesting aspect of it. But the fact that what is being sought, does it do anything to your work in Parliament and also of the OSP? The OSP has issued its half-yearly report, and it gave us an indication that it is commenced investigations into the contractual agreements between Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, SML, a company registered in Ghana, and Ghana Revenue Authority, and investigations into the appropriation, sale, and lease of state-owned lands, and so on. So OSP has also started.
It does not detract from the ability of the Finance Committee of Parliament to also inquire into the matter.
Okay.
It's just that it will amount to waste of state resources, because Parliament, working through its Committee of Finance, they will incur costs on the public purse. OSP doing so will incur cost on the public purse.
That's right.
Then KPMG certainly will bring a bill for us to pay.
Right.
On the same.
But it is possible that Parliament or OSP may have invited the expertise of entities like KPMG to assist them. So same cost.
No, it does not. KPMG's work based on the President Directive is a different contract between KPMG and the state, initiated by the executive. The activities that the OSP will be carrying out under its mandate in respect of this matter is to perform the functions of its office. Of course,
corruption related.
Yes, it will be occasioning some cost on the public purse. Parliament, certainly, an organ of state, the cost that will be incurred, members sitting, clerks coming, they will be fed.
Dr. Theo Champong, briefly and finally, the terms of reference of the audits by the president. Some say this does not even include value for, what do we call it again? A value analysis, so to speak. What do you say? Value for money analysis,
Yeah, there are 6 things that were listed in the terms of reference. Maybe for the purposes of our readers or listeners, it would be good to just quickly run through them. And you can see in the 4th one that there's some value for money analysis in there. So it says, number 1, conduct an audit to ascertain the rationale or needs assessment performed prior to the contract approval by GRA and assess how the arrangement aligns with specific needs. Number 2, assess the appropriateness of the contracting methodology, so the issue of sole sourcing and the likes we've discussed. Verifying compliance with legal standards and industry best practices in the procurement process for the selection of SML. Number 3, quickly, evaluate the degree of alignment between current activities and the stipulated contract scope, identifying any deviations. Number 4, evaluate the value or benefit that SML has so far offered to the GRA through this engagement. 5, review the financial arrangements, including pricing structures, payment terms, and resolution of any financial compliance issues. And lastly, number 6, submit a report of their findings on the above with recommendations. So you can see in 4 and also in even 3, it does point clearly, in my view, to doing analysis on the basis of the value for money.
Okay.
But from what I know in this industry, on the oil and gas, mining, and also downstream, I would be surprised if the findings actually come out to indicate that, you know, SML has actually offered any value to the state so far, and number 2, value that or work that the existing institutions could not, you know, have done. I would be quite surprised if, you know, SML, as they claim, the work of KPMG is going to exonerate them. I'll be surprised in that regard, because you can look at the data, you can look at the analysis, you can look at all whatever it is. It points to the fact that, you know, there's nothing that they are adding to the state when it comes to, you know, extra revenue assurance. And for that matter, the monies that have been paid them is money that could have been better spent building more hospitals and roads and schools than just giving them out.
That part about they doing basically nothing and getting paid and have been paid about 750 million Ghana cedis so far, and have gotten an extension of the contract and are looking forward to $55 million each year, and cumulatively, together with what they are doing already, they are looking to over $100 million US every year. That is so mind-boggling that I struggle to appreciate all you guys, the analysis you do, that the Ministry of Finance, the GRA, will get into this contract and there's no benefit whatsoever to this country, and so much will be given to the company. I can't get it. How will anybody do such a thing?
Something quick one. We've been in this country before. Number 2, the process of doing this revenue assurance and audit and all of that, right? I've already indicated that there are legal provisions that allows the existing institutions to do that, and they actually do it periodically anyway, right? So if there was any issue or there was any flags or revenue losses, how come, you know, we haven't necessarily had any of these in times past? Number 2, if indeed SML has added any value, right, or offered any value so far to GRA on which it has a contract with, let them come and prove it. They issued a statement, and we've also done analysis that shows in their own statement that the claims that they make are not founded, it's not warranted. And there are other people or even processes and companies that can do some of this revenue assurance thing, right? And I've even then argued that if you want to see where we are actually losing money, even like in the oil and gas space, it is not on the revenue side. There are issues with cost and how the companies account for cost, transfer pricing, and you name it. That is not the work that SML does or can do. There are people that are better qualified, or companies better qualified to do that. So if you really want them to add value, let's change the scope. Let's do more cost auditing.
You guys,
to actually find
are you
out
really serious about this? Please, because I can't believe it. I've read the Imani and ASAP thing over and again over the night. That in fact, what the GRA has been doing for its revenue assurance is data from MPA and not from the SML. I can't get it.
SML does not manufacture
They
data.
don't generate
They have
data.
to take the information.
But that is why they were engaged.
They don't do it.
They are engaged to come and do analysis using tools, software, and things to say, okay, based on MPA data, based on Petroleum Commission or oil liftings data, we think that there's some extra revenue somewhere here that the companies have not paid. So therefore, issue them a back tax demand and let them repay back, right?
Okay.
And what I'm also saying is that if you take that same data that SML would have relied on to do the analysis and all of that, there is nothing so far in the data that shows that SML would be adding any incremental value in terms of additional revenue, on which basis then they then justify the payment that's been given to them.
You have made that point. Thank you very much, Dr. Thea Champong. Manasseh, in a minute, what do you have to say? Because I'm just lost. When I read all the analysis, and I heard you speak in the documentary to the MPA, National Petroleum Authority, and you are dealing with petroleum. I just can't get it. And they said they didn't understand what was going on, and they felt that it was duplicitous, a duplication. MPA, now the Petroleum Commission itself is emphatic. We have nothing to do with this. The Minerals Commission says we have nothing to do with this. No surprise, government spokespersons will not be on this show this morning. What's going on? What's your final comment?
My final comment is that anybody who is surprised by this may perhaps landed from Jupiter last night or is a very young child who is about to turn 5 in this country called Ghana. I'm saying this because procurement is the avenue through which Ghana is milked, through which revenue.
The CDD continues to say that.
And I have been doing this for over the years, so I'm not surprised. And a week or two before we published this report, there was a public lecture at the University of Ghana delivered by an astute businessman called Tony Otengesi.
Yeah.
And he actually tackled procurement. He said it is one avenue through which state institutions and state officials milk this country. And he wondered, this was his question, that if those people were doing businesses in their own capacity, the average Ghanaian would haggle and then bid down the price. So why is it that when they are in public office and they are supposed to represent our interests or procure, they just do things that makes us lose so much money? It will interest you to know that Mr. Tony Otengesi is the board chairman of the GRA. So he knows what procurement does to this country. So I don't think he should be surprised.
Professor Stephen Adair, who was also board chairman of the GRA, came out and has been speaking about the deep-seated corruption.
Yes. So to just end with your whoever or those who are saying that these people bring no value, it isn't anybody else saying it. They had advertised on their website that they check under declaration, diversion, dilution, and malfeasance in the system. And we, in our investigation, went through the entire process and we were convinced that the company couldn't be doing what it was doing. We went to SML. We first went to GRA. GRA said, no, they are not doing any of this. Then we went to SML. We confronted them. They said, well, it is a mistake. So they deleted this and put it on the, deleted them from their website. And if you watch the documentary, I asked, have you ever detected any single issue of under declaration since you started operating? They said no. So you have people like Professor Ransford Jampo of the University of Ghana. He has an article saying that SML was doing or checking under declaration, and the suspension of the contract means that people are going to steal revenue. I think if he had read or listened to the documentary, there were 2 instances that the company itself said they weren't checking under declaration. And then the GRA, they said that they use the figures from NPA to calculate their taxes and not the figures from SML. So whatever that people are saying, these statements or conclusions come from the data available, data published by the GRA, NPA, and state institutions, and then what SML and GRA people said in this document.
And it must be said that the Imani is a comprehensive analysis and review they have done. They don't rely on any outside data. They use data of the GRA and the NPA.
Public entities.
Oh, God. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So it's what it is, and people are saying this smacks of create, loot, and share. It's not that it's some mistake that's been done by anybody, but this is people siphoning money from the state through a very easy process. Pass it on to a company so that it is known that you are doing something right, regular. Then you go and take the money and use it for whatever you want to use it for. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much. We'll take a break. I'll return to read your messages, and then there are issues of the economy to deal with also, and the matter of the Sabbath on the 7th of December 2024 and elections. What will SDA members do? And they give us an idea of how many of their church premises that the state has been using as polling purposes, polling centers, and the rest of them. We will be right back.
To fully implementing the IMF-supported PCPEG, and we have put in place all the necessary implementation arrangements to make sure the program does not derail, so we can fully achieve our intended objectives. Now the final crucial step in our strategy involves the restructuring of our commercial debt, particularly our Eurobonds. The IMF board's approval of the first review and the recent agreement of official credit set the stage for our impending re-engagement with bondholders, which will commence as early as next week. We are working hard.
Central University, Ghana's leading private Christian university, has open admissions. Apply now for a degree in environmental engineering, fashion design, landscape design, interior design, business administration, economics, law, nursing, civil engineering, architecture, computer science, IT, theology, PharmD, and many others. Degrees are available on our campuses in Mutual, ICGC Christ Temple, Abosokai, and Kumasi. Also enroll in our MBA with various specializations. Scholarships are available for needy but brilliant students. Call us on 0303-318-583 or visit our website at central.edu.gh for more information. Central University, raising transformational leaders through faith, integrity, and excellence.
Welcome to a thrilling season of football live on Star Times. The best of Africa will converge in Ivory Coast from the 13th of January.
Witness the most anticipated tournament in African football, where Ghana could end a 42-year trophy drought, and Egypt with an 80% chance of winning their 8th AFCON title. The Teranga Lions of Senegal look like defending their title. The AFCON is here with all 52 matches delivered in stunning HD on Star Times. It's an incredible new year. Upgrade to the Star Times Mega Bouquet for only 180 Ghana cedis.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life. Be part of the moments to remember with AFCON 2023 on DSTV. Experience Africa's biggest football tournament with all 52 thrilling games live and in HD the way you like it. Enjoy expert commentary that will blow your mind.
It's a gorgeous finish. Super goal.
And the finest analysis to keep you in the game. Live your pride, passion, and love for Africa's beautiful game from the 13th of Jan to the 11th of Feb on Supersport or anywhere on DSTV Stream.
Provident Insurance welcomes you to a new year. Remember to insure your new car or renew your existing motor insurance from the 1st of January to the 31st of March. You can win free gifts such as fuel coupons and several other branded Provident souvenirs. Rush for your insurance cover now. Terms and conditions apply.
Your future happy days.
With Provident, man, you are covered.
Hi, my name is Nanama McBrown, and I want to encourage you to dial *165# on MTN to join the My Way family. My Way provides you and a selected family member a cover against death. As a policyholder, you will also have a cover against total permanent disability and hospitalization should you be hospitalized for more than 2 nights. Dial *165# and join the family. Sanya My Way, Kasa no way.
My Way is a product of My Life and MTN Momo. Terms and conditions apply.
Allow me to assure you that we remain steadfast in our commitment to act resolutely. Ultimately, we are showing our resolve that our economy has certainly turned the corner, and across the government will focus on attaining a more resilient, transformed economy that delivers higher living standards for our people within the shortest possible time. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, God has given Ghana victory, and greater things he will continue to do.
News analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. K. Amofa says it's interesting to note that the Commission, NPC, in charge of the upstream petroleum sector in Ghana, is not aware of the SML deal. What kind of national management is this? It's long overdue for the Honorable Minister for Finance to leave. Okay, now people within the government are also saying so. That is after the MPs failed. This one from a J. Bequin. He says, the more I hear certain supposedly independent social commentators suddenly come to the defense of this shady SML contract, the more I get convinced they themselves need to be investigated regarding their relationship with those involved. Kwame says, Theo, you are not being nice on Newsfile this morning. You are basically stating that the SML contract was akin to a create, loot, and share scheme. This is not your style. Often, I can only conclude you are not happy. These are thieves. Then Eraba Poku says that, so SML is simply a duplication of work. It has to be abrogated immediately. What's the timeline for the KPMG investigation again? How can we citizens also do our own investigation? Way forward, we don't have to leave Ghana in the hands of any political party. Is there any law that prevents parallel investigations? The OSP should also do his work. We need to retrieve all that we have lost. These are the type of case the courts will have to sit on every day. The state actors can't keep quiet. We use taxpayers' money to pay them. I am boiling. What country is this? A good president should have allowed the OSP to just do this work and do it quick. This one from Vine Maxwell, he says, if you are surprised at what's going on in Ghana, then you are delusional. SML is a duplicitous setup by individuals at high places of government to loot our motherland to death. It's unfortunate, laughable, what Ghana has become under the leadership of the NPP. So sad indeed for Ghanaians. Excellence reign. You say the procurement process in Ghana is so terrible and people have taken advantage of it. It's not terrible. It's not people taking advantage of it. Do you know when you can procure for soul sourcing? Go and read the law. It's a good law. It is bad people who are making a good law very bad. He says that they take advantage of it to milk the country. It's so bad how the country is being looted through procurement. All right, that's your message. And Frank Anderson Jr. says, is Finance Minister really ask SML contract to be extended to the gold sector without being clear in his mind what value is to be derived? Are we surprised why Ghana's finances are in such a mess? That's your question. Prince Henry Koforidia writing me a letter. It says, to be sincere, corruption has defeated the NPP government led by Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, because it is very amazing that the Nana Akufo-Addo we knew in opposition, preaching and accusing the NDC of corruption, has been very mute on issues of corruption under his leadership. This SML scandal stinks and has exposed the Nana Akufo-Addo government very, very well on how lackadaisical the leadership is in fighting corruption. Where is the announced principle that Akufo-Addo promised to use to fight corruption? The future is pregnant. Proverbs 29 verse 2. Thanks for your message. I'll go and read that. Now, Musa Abattoir in Kumasi says, a government that's interested in protecting public purse will quickly abrogate the SML contract because all the industry players say the deal is bad for Ghana. Interestingly, on the lighter note, Manasseh, he left Ghana under President John Mahama doing his work peacefully, but under President Akufo-Addo, he had to run for cover in the US to continue his career. No, that's not what he's doing. He left Ghana, yes, at a certain point in this regime to another country. That was South Africa, not to the US. In the US now, he's a fellow, he's a Harvard fellow. He's is it a Nehemiah something, the biggest journalism prize fellow at the Harvard School. He's not there because he's been chased by anybody. Thank you very much. This one says that, this Mickey, we heard MPP in opposition protested against Suba Info Solutions contract, and nothing happened to the perpetrators of that contract when power was handed over to them since January 7, 2017. Mackenzie and SML contracts are similar versions of Suba Info Solutions fraud. All right, so you are just joining Dafe Amapo, who appears to say this is an elevated Mackenzie. All right, well, the two, Imani and ASEP, they actually have left questions for the government to answer about these other contracts that have become, an issue in the country. I'll read the very last message from PK in Elembele. He says, with 2024 being an election year in Ghana, I will advise the special prosecutor to be on top of his work to check corrupt cases or actions. In an election year, many are those in government that are keen to amass wealth home, to leave government and enjoy with their families. Many are those politicians who will take an undue advantage to milk the country. So, special prosecutor, look sharp. All right, thank you very much for all of those messages. We will now go to the matter of the economy and the IMF, last tranche of the bailouts that has been delayed for a while, and the implications for this country. All right, so let me begin with Professor Bokwing. Professor Bokwing, thank you very much once again for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning to our cherished listeners. Happy New Year.
Right. Ghana to receive second tranche of 600 million IMF disbursement. The minister has been telling us. We have taxes we are putting into electricity consumption. People who subscribe to cocoa board bonds have been telling us the circumstances they find themselves in now. They are not being paid what they are due to be paid. They are not being paid their interest. They are not even also being paid their principals. And we heard of the harrowing story from a family who need to pay their children's school fees. They have saved when they worked very hard to make money, save the money, keep it in a government bond to take care of their family. And here they are, they speak and you can tell the tears in their voices. What do you say?
Samson, that is the contradiction of our economic recovery. And whilst on one hand, the IMF and government are celebrating success, on the other hand, that is cost and pain to ordinary Ghanaians, to households, to private sector. So there's no breathing space for households, citizens, and the private sector is simply because the state is not at rest. Okay, and therefore, and unfortunately, as the IMF own work and practice over the years have demonstrated, this micro-level pain, suffering, the adjustment cost of restoring macroeconomic stability is not reflected in IMF documents so much, because their focus is macro target, macroeconomic stability. The price or the cost to ordinary Ghanaians, as you have mentioned, and in many cases, are poorly reflected in the IMF own assessment of how their program is going. Because if you look at the targets that the IMF is celebrating together with government, it really has no space for this person who is suffering. Typically has no space for the pensioner who picketed or whatever last year and all of that. But that is also consistent with the pathway to restoring macroeconomic stability. The understanding is that when you mess up your economy, as we did, and there's no dispute about that now, because the IMF report has also confirmed that Ghana's vulnerabilities pre-existed even before, in other words, before COVID. COVID only magnified it and demonstrated how weak in terms of economic resilience we were in the run-up to COVID and Russia, Ukraine conflict and the rest of it. So that is largely consistent. So, but if you look at, we will say it's also positive news because the country had gotten to its wit's end. The only way out was to reach out to the IMF. So it would be quite disastrous for Ghana to say that, or to receive the news that even under an IMF program, we are not doing well. That would just heighten the uncertainty. But to the extent that the delays in the approval of the first review, it should have been done latest by the 1st November 2023. And we had to wait all this while. And 32 million people or so, all that we're doing was to wait for IMF board approval for $600 million. But of course, we also do know that with that board approval, it also unlocks other funding from the World Bank. I think about $550 million. $250 million of that will go to support the setting up of the Financial Stability Fund. And then the $330 million or so, $300 million or so will go to budgetary support. So that is good news in terms of an important breakthrough for us. But is that sufficient? Is that enough? And the answer obviously is no. Is this manifesting in improved standards of living for the ordinary Ghanaian? Again, the answer is no. Can the ordinary Ghanaian identify with the flamboyant statement of the IMF, the mission chief, about how well the program is doing? The answer is no. The reason is that we are not yet done in terms of the corrective, painful adjustment that is earmarked for Ghana under the program in order to restore macroeconomic stability. And that is why you see that a country that has gone through a painful fiscal adjustment of higher taxes, expenditure rationalization, domestic debt exchange, the only viable way it could welcome its citizens into 2024 was to impose VAT on electricity consumption. Okay? And it's also an election year.
The TUC is kicking against that.
I support them. In fact, I'll be glad to join them if they want to demonstrate against this. I support them. I think Ghana, we have allowed too many wrongs in this country.
But Prof, the wrongs have happened and we need a solution. And part of the solution is simply to mobilize money. So if we can use electricity to mobilize money, these are easy sources by which government can get money.
It's a lazy approach. Government should work hard. Nobody is against raising more money. Look, who are we building this economy for? Are we not building it for Ghanaians? Are we not building it for Ghanaian private sector and businesses? What happens if by the time we achieve macroeconomic stability, half of Ghanaians have gone into poverty and have no way of reversing that? What economy is that? At the center of it all is people, businesses. So we are looking at the optimal way of raising revenue without compromising the ability of households to also meet their needs and private sector to also continue to remain competitive. These are the options. Ghana doesn't have an option.
Okay.
Nobody can tell us that the only way out is to impose more taxes as we have done. And Samson, let me tell you what is happening. Ghana has gotten to the zone of tax substitution. So the more we impose taxes, the real effect in scaling up our tax revenue to GDP ratio is not seen. This is a small open economy. We have more than 27 different tax handles. That is not the only thing. Something. If since 2020 and the taxes we have imposed, if you estimate the compliance cost to the taxpayer is huge. Configuring systems virtually every 6 months. There is no predictability. Look, the banking sector, they spend millions of dollars to configure their system to allow the charging of e-levy. Check the manufacturing sector. They pay so much and disruption to their production line just to fix a tax stamp or something. Okay, virtually every 6 months, there's some level of disruption to planning, to production process. This is, look, let me tell you something. My considered view is that what Ghana is doing is not taxation. This is a state-sponsored robbery. This is robbery that leaves the citizens financially repressed. It should not be accepted. There is a way out.
Okay. Obviously, this is where Professor Bokwing has been pushed to now say that this is robbery, state-sponsored robbery. And this conversation was intended to be very brief. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Thea Champong, briefly, what do you have to say? The delay, does it affect the generality of the ordinary people? The fuel prices, they are demanding 20%. It doesn't look like they will get the 20%, but they say there's a justification for it. And then all of these other, things that are coming up. And I'm being frank with you. When I listen to the story of people who have made their investment in the cocoa bonds, and the circumstances they find themselves, the husband and wife speaking, look, I was literally in tears. I gave my money to you to make profit out of it. Give it back to me or give me my interest, and I can't get it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's precisely the point that Prof. Bokpin made, right? That we have been suffering as Ghanaians collectively. In fact, even those of us in the diaspora, the number of calls that we get almost on a weekly basis for one form of support or the other, is sometimes, beggars belief. And there are times you sit there and you're like, but you're not even a politician, and you've got people, asking you for all sorts of little support here or there. And it goes to show how much we have destroyed the economy and subsequently the impact that it has had on livelihoods over the last 2 or so years. Particularly for this second tranche of the IMF funds, we were expecting this money to have come in as far back as November of last year. The thing that was holding it back was getting an agreement with our bilateral creditors to restructure that component of the external debt. And that delayed a bit, and luckily we've got the deal that has come through now, and that would allow us to get the 600 million in the next few days. And then, like Prof also said, there's an extra money that would come from the World Bank and others to support, budget and then the financial sector stability fund. So on that front, you could argue that it's a positive, that you're going to further bolster your reserves, support the currency, especially as you go into February of March, where a number of the companies, the multinational companies, would have closed their books for the last financial year, and they'll be repatriating some of their profits and the likes out. That helps on that front. But the important thing, which touches on this whole turning the corner debate and all of that, is really the fact that we cannot assume that when you have some relative macroeconomic stability with inflation coming down relatively, your exchange rate being relatively stable, then that necessarily means that you have turned the corner or you even have a resilient economy, because it is yet to translate into the micro level. And you look at the cost of doing business, businesses are still borrowing now in excess of 30%. You still got the excess tax hikes that we've been talking about, some of which Prof mentions. Now we're talking 15% VAT on electricity, which again is not needed at this point, right? So you see the disconnect. So in one sense, we are celebrating some relative gains on the macroeconomic front, but it is not translating overnight into micro-level improvement in well-being and other sort of indicators. And that will take some time. And that is what leads me, and I've said this on other platforms earlier during this week, that it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years to really see this relative stability on the macro front translate into improving livelihood. So you look at the IMF statement that was issued yesterday night, and they are very careful, even from them, to claim like that we have turned the corner, right? They say that, quote, the authorities' reforms are bearing fruit, and this is the important thing, signs of economic stabilization are emerging. They didn't say that you have gotten to economic, so the signs or the offshoots are there. So even the IMF is a bit measured. So sometimes I worry when our, political class come in and try to paint a picture as though we are out of the woods, when clearly we are not out. There has been some progress, there has been some relative macro stability, but by no means are we out of the woods yet, and we should be a little bit more measured. So maybe let me just finish with 3 things I think we've got to do. The first thing really is I'm expecting the finance ministry to issue a statement of what exactly we have agreed to in terms of the bilateral restructuring. So there's been some things that have been said, but we need a clear statement of what we agreed to And the things that we have agreed to, what does it mean for Ghana in terms of the debt reduction in MPV terms?
Right, next to.
So we can compare. Number two, given that we are going to pay some of these monies later in the 2030s, we should start putting money aside to service that debt. So the idea of a sinking fund to retire existing debt should come back to the table. And this is something that under the former finance minister, Setepe, they tried to do or set up a fund like that to retire debt. Number three, and the last one, the debt relief that we're getting, or these savings that we're getting, I'm expecting the IMF and others to force the government to come up with a program on how the monies would be spent exactly. And I'm saying this because of the election year that is ahead of us in December this year. We need a clear plan that will tell us those savings that we have made, where is the money going to be channeled into in terms of social spending, infrastructure spending. Otherwise, we would have made savings on paper, and those savings would end up, going to finance recurrent expenditure and other election-related expenses.
Thank you very much.
Any of the gains that we're talking about will end up eroding all of that in just a year's time.
Many thanks, Dr. Theo Champong, economist and political risk analyst. You also heard Professor Bokping, who joined us earlier, Godfred Bokping, who is senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. And he's been talking about these issues for a very long time. And just today, he was moved to use an expression that you've never heard him use before, robbery, that is going on by the state as far as our finances are concerned in the harsh ways that we are suffering them. Now, let's get very quick comments in respect of what the SDA is seeking, but of course the FEMAPA will come in briefly. Dr. Emmanuel Akwete is Executive Director, Institute of Democratic Governance. Sheikh Aremi Al-Shaibu, a spokesperson for the National Chief Imam. Professor Jampo, political scientist with the University of Ghana. And also, of course, Roxanne Nelson, the FEMAPA MP for South Nai. Now, maybe a minute on the economic circumstances. And were you surprised to hear people like Atachia say the finance minister should just check out to save himself and save the government?
I'm not surprised because Atta is an outspoken person, but the difficulty for me is that he hasn't spoken early enough. And I think that his call, he ought to have added his voice to the 98 colleague MPs last year who staged a public show of actually asking their government to get the man off. But be it as it may, things are really deteriorating, my brother. You are a private practitioner. So first of all, I'll take it from that perspective. Your clients can't pay fees. Not even a modicum of fees that you are charging, they can't pay. And yet, you are jumping from one court to the other every day handling their cases. So that's the first effect of the deterioration in the economy. Second, if you go to the website of Ghana Statistical Service, there are very, very horrible indices. Multidimensional poverty in this country has increased from the number of people under the multidimensional poverty levels have increased from 13.7 to 44.7 as of last year. That speaks volumes. Look, we had a stabilization fund. This government came to deplete it. Now we are getting funding from IMF, and we are using about a chunk of that to go and put back in the stabilization fund. Doesn't make sense. We leave money for you. You come and deplete it. Now the IMF intervention is what we are going to use part to solve. Unemployment rate is now in excess of 13%. Roads have deteriorated so much that people can't even travel to their constituencies and districts. The water floods that happened, or the water dam that flooded both upstream and downstream, has its dark consequences in terms of poverty matters. Because you see, farmlands have been flooded, food crops in the farms are all gone, roads have been cut off, homes, residential homes are underwater as we speak. So I'm sure that by the first quarter of this year, the poverty levels in the areas that, including my own South-Dine, Gemini, Tongo, Chanak, all the way to Kweve area, will be so serious. And so I've been asking, the IMF intervention, what is the impact? How are we feeling it? How are we feeling it in the ordinary pockets of the people in the streets? Now we are being told that we are going to pay VAT on electricity consumption. We are a people so taxed that we have become tax fatigued. So for me, something, we were told that pensioners' fund will not be affected by the DDEP. It's been affected. How do you take money that people who are on pension are supposed to have access to? How do you take portions out of it? So this government, this is a government in a quicksand. Whatever efforts they are making, they keep sinking. So they have to be thrown out for a new set of people in the NDC to come and take charge of affairs and review matters.
Interesting. And you're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. It's brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Insurance in such a simplified way. Syntex tanks, it's strong, it's tough. Flamingo paints, simply superior. They pay for this show, and thank you all so very much. The state robbery is too clear through the lazy man approach way by imposing 15% consumption tax on electricity. This is coming from a financial expert. He says the state robbery is too clear through the lazy man's approach way by imposing 15% tax consumption on electricity. Well, the TUC, since they say they are against it, let's see how it goes. And the drivers asking for 20% on transportation costs and other issues. Now, Sheikh Armia Shaibu, thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile this morning, sir. Please unmute your mic.
Shaibu, thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile this morning, sir.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Happy New Year.
Please unmute your mic.
Right, so we would like you to listen to me directly rather than on the set that you are using to monitor the program. You have spoken the mind of the National Chief Imam, and many have been surprised that Muslims supporting a Christian group's advocacy for elections to be rescheduled so that they can go to worship God on the 7th of December 2024?
Thank you so much, Samson, and once again, Happy New Year.
Right.
This is the first time since the year began. Yeah, it is true. I mean, a delegation from the SDA Church paid a courtesy call on the eminent National Chief Imam on this very important subject matter. And their message was translated. I am the one who did the translation and I used the language that is most understood by the eminent national chief imam, as I have been doing. And so he made a response that it is a petition in the right direction, knowing his spirit of mutual solidarity, mutual cooperation, mutual respect among practitioners of different religions in this country. But to really shed some more light on this angle, the preliminary position emanates from the understanding that democracy in practice, as opposed to democracy in theory, involves elements like inclusivity, participation, equality, justice, especially in an environment of interfaith diversity, so that everybody will really get its due share. Secondly, election and voting are national responsibilities on citizens. And we must all create an environment in which no particular section of society, regardless of its identity, whether religious, whether ethnic, whether cultural, will be sidelined or left behind or marginalized or deprived. And all those things, no particular citizen should be deprived. And so therefore, we must create an environment of equality where everybody will have the chance. Thirdly, in anticipation of multi-religious diversity, our constitution had made provision for everybody to follow or to choose or follow any religion of choice. And not only that, to give manifestation to that choice or identity of religion. So within the space of our democracy, everybody must be given the chance to be able to exercise its franchise. That is the basis on which the chief imam said it is a petition well thought through, and it's also in the right direction. But let me also quickly add that for we as Muslims, Friday is not a holiday in the sense of the SDA Sabbath, because in our case, it is only prohibited to engage in worldly or mundane activity at the time when prayer has been called on Friday, up to the time of finishing our prayer. Now, post the prayer period, the Muslim is free to embark upon any mundane activity that are lawful within the ethical framework of Islamic teachings.
Okay.
So we must really create, but for the SDA, their doctrine says that on Saturday they cannot engage in any mundane activity.
Right.
So we must really create a space for them to be able to exert their franchise. And I think that it is within the larger space of democracy, it's a good thing to do.
Right. And for someone like you coming from Codeo leadership, you would also understand this better. And the example you give with the Muslims will apply to the other, as it were, denominations of the Christendom, who will go to church on Sunday, but after church, they are free to do anything. So if there were elections, they can go to church and return to vote. A Muslim can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Now, their proposition is that it should be on the first Tuesday or second Tuesday, is it? First or second Tuesday of November. Where do you stand? So that you don't put a date to it. You don't put a date like 7th, and then some other year it may recur as a Sabbath, or it could be a Friday, or it could be a Sunday. That's their proposition.
Yeah. I think the idea is avoid to escape any of the days that are held as sacred or holy by any particular religion. That is the idea, that in order to escape it,
right,
so that we can create convenience for everybody. Samson, I think in this country we are worried that voter turnout is on, it has been reducing over the years. But to really be democratic and to ensure that any person voted for as a president is really the choice of the people, really in truth and in action, is the selection of the people, then we must encourage people to vote so that the voter turnout will rise. I will be glad if we are able to hit 100% voter turnout.
Right.
So that truly, any person who is voted for as a choice of the people, and not that a section, because of certain circumstance, will not vote.
Right.
This is the ground on which we think that if this arrangement will suit and make sure everybody will be able to vote, then I have no objection to that kind of arrangement. And it's something that must be open to the debate, continuous engagement and dialogue, and I'm sure we'll be able to arrive at a better arrangement.
Thank you very much for your time, Sheikh Aremia Shaibu, spokesperson for the National Chief Imam. Of course, those of you who know him, he's also in the Codeo leadership. Professor Emmanuel Akwete of the IDEG, thank you very much for joining us. We have attempted before to shift the date to November earlier. Maretta Brewer-Appiah upon then went to Parliament to move it. It appears the parties had agreed, but once she got in there, they changed their mind. The MPP changed their mind and it was defeated. How easy can this be achieved if you think it is something that ought to be pursued?
Sorry, I've been driving, so I haven't listened to everything, but that's what I think. I think this issue had come up before. Many of you wouldn't know, but in December 2008, after the second round, when we had to go to the third round, a group of clergymen, that was the genesis of the Peace Council, the group that came together. And they said, I think we had to do the final vote the third or so on a Sunday. And it then changed the conversation. Also, not just the SDA, but also amongst other groups. The Presbyterians and many others said, no, Sunday we have to go to church and we cannot do the voting and so on. But the compromise then became that, look, every Sunday is a big thing for most Christians. You could go to church or have it early or whatever, and then same time so that people can go and vote, because the time for closing polling stations was about 5 o'clock or 5 p.m. and so on. And this became the compromise. And they opened it. In fact, some of we had the Catholics, we had the Anglicans, we had the Presbyterians, all faith. And the Christian Council, embodies a whole lot of that. So there was also that dimension that this was a duty to a nation. This was the right we should all exercise. And then they had met to think about how to bring about peaceful elections and peaceful post-elections. And they didn't see the contradiction with the worship of God, because the 24 hours, God is worshipped every time, and so on. So it was quite interesting listening to their conversations. But it was resolved. It didn't change. They kept it and said, look, it falls on Saturday mostly, but if local elections, that differs. That could happen on a weekday. And I also say that turnout is also low in the local elections, because mostly on weekdays, and people don't feel motivated very much. That this is something that they must do by all means, as against what happens in the national elections. So they didn't resolve it that way. They said, look, let's all agree and find how best we can get our worship of God. We wouldn't suspend it, but we can still do it in a way, and also exercise our civic rights and liberties or obligations. So in that case, I listened to just part of Sheikh Aremia's contribution, which I thought was well informed from the position he stands. But to change the date, let's move to November and so on. It's not the month that determines which Saturday, whether it's the first week of the month that we should determine. I mean, in this case, it happens within the first week, isn't it? Right. So I didn't quite understand how we could adjust it, because a whole lot of factors play the role in determining the date. And I also think that because it's a collective thing, it's a national thing, it is equally prayers to God, service to God and country. That's how we put it. We do not say service to only country. God comes first, service to God and country. And God wants us to be peaceful. He doesn't want us to be hurting ourselves and so on. So I think to want to see how would the church adjust? Because you couldn't say that the entire population go to that particular church.
Okay.
But some segment. How best can the church also see how best it could bend, or it could adjust, or it could hold its services? I don't believe it holds services 24 hours on that day.
All right.
And so let's see the rational approach. That state says we are serving God and country.
All right.
And
Thank you.
On that day we pray as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, for joining us briefly with your insight also, particularly because of where you sit in our democratic good governance, things. Let me now bring in Roxanne Nelson Dafeamapo. Election is a national duty. The church's right to exist, to operate freely, is premised on the safe democratic structures guaranteed by the freedom to elect leaders. So this is a texter. He says, let's not set bad precedent. The SDA Church must be progressive in the leadership of their people. One single day in a year to participate in a democratic exercise that underpins the very existence of the church is a national assignment for all.
I agree with the tester, but I want to assure him that there are already legal regimes that should have been had recourse to and assured the SDA Church. So let me anchor my submission on some key provisions of the Constitution. Article 42 is the effect that every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public elections and referenda. So this is the fundamental basis upon which the SDA is making its case. Now, where we appear to be having problems is in respect of Article 63.4, if I got it right, 63.2 and Article 1124. 63.2, what does it say? It says that in respect of the presidential elections, the election of the president shall be on the terms of universal adult suffrage and shall, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, be conducted in accordance with such regulations as may be prescribed by constitutional instrument by the Electoral Commission and shall be held so as to begin, A, where a president is in office not earlier than 4 months, nor later than 1 month before his term of office expires, and B, in any other case within 3 months after the office of president becomes vacant. Now, Article 1124, if I don't want to bore you, it is to the effect that subject to Clause 2 of Article 113 of this Constitution, a general election of members of Parliament shall be held within 30 days before the expiration of the period specified in Clause 1 of that article, and a session of Parliament shall be appointed to commence within 14 days after the expiration of that period. So, these 3 constitutional provisions is what mandates SDA to assert their right to vote, to be registered, and when registered, so that on the day of a certain public elections, they can participate. Now, they are alleging a conflict of their faith. A certain Saturday on coming December 7th will be the Sabbath.
About 2,000 of their facilities are also used for polling.
Yes, I'll get there.
And their members are also used.
About
so
they have about 300.
Just do it on the first week of, the first Tuesday of November or first Tuesday of December. That's all they want.
I've listened to them, and I agree with them entirely. I don't think there's anybody in the NDC or anybody in the NPP against. But the point I've been making, which I made yesterday on another platform, is that if you look at CI 127, Regulation 23, which talks about special voting list.
Okay.
There's a provision for special voting. But what we have done in the law is to tie your right to apply to be put on the voting list to participating in election duties. So we can enlarge that election duties to include for any other reason.
There was a time journalists were even excluded, even though we have always been included.
Your FM station called me earlier this morning, and I said that I recall just the last election cycle, the 2020, journalists were, because the case was made that because you were so involved in the coverage of the election, which has become like a major mandate for you,
right?
You had the right to be added to the security forces, so to speak, who were mandated because they will be participating in the election duties, to be put on the special voting list. So we could ask journalists, we could ask the SDA.
All right.
All that the Electoral Commission has to do is to make a larger logistical arrangements, so that, for instance, in Southern, if the special voters list contains 1,200, we are the SDA members, we are journalists, we could have 2,000 people voting for a special day. The next day we vote. We don't have, this is a storm in a teacup.
Okay. Professor Ramsford Jampo, thank you very much for joining us. What will be your brief take on this? Also, because of where you stand, you have observed this process, you have worked with the IEA, where proposals were being made about how to change things in respect of our voting days, I suppose. What do you say? A good call?
Well, is it about the one that SG is asking that elections shouldn't be held
Yes, they are saying that they would wish that the elections are held on the first Tuesday of November or the first Tuesday of December, because the 7th of December 2024 is a Sabbath, and they are not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. This has happened before, and they don't want it to recur.
Oh, okay. I think there is the greatest of respect to them. Ghana, our constitution guarantees the free expression of our religion. But at the same time, the constitution says we are a secular state. And so, if it is a secular state, people have got the right to exercise their religion, but it must not be exercised in a manner that sort of projects their religious beliefs and faith and ideals over those of the other people who also have their different religious beliefs and faith and ideals. So the point is that, given that it's a secular state, any day is fine. Otherwise, if we allow this tomorrow, if election day falls on Friday, Muslims will tell us that, well, they go to the mosque on Friday, and so we shouldn't. And if it falls on Sunday, you have a preponderant majority of Ghanaians being Christians. They may say that it is going to disturb the day on which they have elected to worship their God.
Prof, it's only a plea they are making, and if that plea is taken, there will not be a conflict for Muslims or any Christian group anymore.
Well, it's a plea, but if that plea is taken, it is possible that it will open the floodgates for similar pleas to also be made. And so, the greatest of respect to them. Yes, voting is a national duty. It's an important exercise. I expect them to participate. But if one believes that your religious beliefs and ideals are so important that you want to disregard voting and go to church, I think it should be a matter of choice that one would want to make. We should be careful. Once the Constitution says, now it doesn't the point that there was one day in a university where we wanted to begin a program, and on the program outline there was opening prayer. Some people took issues that, look, why should it be an opening Christian prayer? Let us all observe 1 minute of silent prayer for ourselves, because Ghana is a secular country. So if you say Christian prayer, then it's like you are giving primacy to Christianity over the other religions. I'm a Christian and I believe in Christian ideas. But so long as the fundamental laws of the land says we are secular country, we should be careful not to allow all religious beliefs, all religious sects and states to also come in making pleas and demands. Today it's SDA, if it is granted. Tomorrow it will be Baha'i faith, it will be Hare Krishnas, it will be Muslims, it will be Christians, and we create a state of confusion and a state of factorialism in the body politic. It's not something that we should encourage.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Ransford Jampo of the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. And this is where we draw the curtains on News File for today. I'm Samson Ladia. Yanini, join me tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. on my weekly legal clinic as I have lawyers, lecturer, UPSA Law School,